Hello and welcome back to the Loyal Sun Show. That's at the Loyal Suns on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Follow us here and follow us there for Pitt sports content you will not want to miss. If you hate West Virginia, this is the place for you. The Loyal Sun Show, a safe, sun-shiny place for your Pitt Athletics fix. Gentlemen, it is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024, and we are a mere 3 days away from the 107th edition of the Backyard Brawl.
Nothing else I can think of this week. I mean, we're working, trying to get to Saturday, but man, the Brawl has a funny way of just consuming all of your attention, brain power, and everything. The Brawl consumes everything.
I think the high of coming off of that huge win against Cincinnati helped ease my stress about the Brawl for a little bit because I was focused on how big of a win that was and how good we looked in the second half. But as the week's gone on, I've been getting progressively more stressed and worried and nervous and anxious and everything. So it's only going to get worse from here, and I can't wait.
Yeah, if today is like the way I felt at midweek, I can only imagine what Thursday and Friday are going to feel like. Because there's no question. This is the biggest game on our schedule. Yes, we're going to play probably a ranked Clemson later in the year. Possibly, we'll see at that point, a ranked Boston College. We're going to play games that have implications for the ACC. I'm just kidding. Boston College isn't still going to be ranked by then. We're going to play games with real implications on our postseason hopes. But this is clearly the bigger deal, right?
Yeah, that's what makes rivalries so great in college football, and beat the drum about how money and capitalism and greed are ruining what makes college football great. But just look at this week and look at what Saturday is going to look like on the North Shore. This is what it's all about. And I'm firmly in the camp that we should play West Virginia and Penn State every single year. These games, no matter what part of the season they're played, they're important. You can have 3 wins going into this game, and the opponent can be ranked number 2 in the country. The game's important and can be important for many decades after. It's really nothing like it, and it's not a stretch to say that the result of Saturday could ultimately, obviously, win or lose, a lot of things can happen after. We can still have a good season, but I don't know. It's like a season within the season. If you lose the Brawl, there's no getting that back until next year when you have the Brawl again. And then as it stands right now, after next year, a 3-year hiatus.
Every college team should have a game like this, that no matter how good you are, it can ruin your season. And no matter how bad you are, it can salvage your season. So I feel bad for schools that don't have big rivalry games like this. Whether you're Ohio State and Michigan and there's actual stakes, getting to the playoff or winning the conference, or if, Pitt and West Virginia could both finish the year with 2-3 wins. This game would still be massive. I know it's at the beginning of the year now, so it doesn't have the same ring as it used to back whenever it was the end of the year. You could have been having the shittiest season ever, but the juices get flowing again. Every team needs something like that, and I'm glad we have this one back.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing on the planet like college football rivalries. And my favorite thing is just kind of how dumb they are. Do you know how the Michigan-Minnesota mini rivalry where they play for the little brown jug started?
Nope.
In 1908. The head coach of Michigan thought Minnesota was going to poison their water. So he brought a little brown jug to the game. They tied, and Minnesota said, if you want it back, you got to win it. You know how the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry started? There was a literal war between those states over Toledo, of all places. And so they just hated each other forever. Like, what an interesting span of startups. What an interesting range of causes. Only in college football, baby.
Yeah, this has been going on 107 years. Oh, no, not 107 years. There was a hiatus. I don't know how many years since the first one, but over 100 years. So now you just naturally hate each other, and that's what makes it great. That's what makes the trash talk on Saturdays and Twitter, the banter, if that's what we're going to call it. It's just, you hate it, but you need it.
To answer your question, it was 129 years ago. 1895 was the first Brawl.
Who won that one?
I'm going to assume Pitt, because we were very good at the turn of the century, and they were very bad all the time.
Kind of like how they have no national championships ever.
Oh, wow. Actually, the West Virginia Snakes defeated Western University of Pennsylvania 8-0. And that's what Pitt was before they were Pitt.
Well, doesn't count then.
No, I agree with that. No, I agree. Everybody should be a rivalry, or should have a rivalry. I don't know how you start one in college football. Like I know UConn and UCF. Well, UConn tried to start one up with UCF, and it just got largely ignored, the civil conflict. But like, if you don't have a rival in college football, go piss in somebody's Gatorade jug and create one.
I think that's what makes them so great, though, right? Is that they have to be organic. I mean, you can do your best. The ACC has done their best to make Syracuse our rival in the ACC. But I don't know that we particularly get any more juiced up for a Syracuse game than we do just about any other ACC matchup. The Coastal Division kind of created some rivalries, quote unquote, between those teams that we saw every year. But just like we said before, like this game, there was a hiatus of how many years, and when the game started back up, we were just as pissed off at each other as we were 10 years before.
Yeah, there was so much heat coming into that 2022 year. But Twitter, especially leading up to this week, is always an incredible spectacle. I will not read our replies.
Yeah,
West Virginia week.
They become toxic waste the second Sunday rolls into Monday.
And we have to bait the Hoopies too. We got to throw out the memes about how they eat squirrel and what else do we put up today? We always reference 13-9, Country Roads, terrible song, not about your state. Just play the hits and turn the notifications off.
Exactly, but sometimes there are unintended consequences. You'll notice Adam Crowley's not joining us this week.
Yeah,
That's funny. It's like there's actually no bad blood here. He was gonna come on, but he had some other commitments today, I think. But no, I mean, yeah, we got a shout out on the fan, which was interesting. That feels above our station, but no, I mean, this is some really, really serious stuff, and I feel like Twitter now in modern college football rivalries has become like 50% of what rivalries are.
Yeah, because then you can just shit talk the other fan base for the next 365 days until it happens again. That was the best thing ever. After the first year, anytime a West Virginia fan came out of the woodwork, we'd just send them a screenshot of MJ Devonshire returning a pick six, or Bryce Ford Wheaton volleyball setting the ball to him, and That's an argument ender. They got nothing to say to top that. So they got us last year, and we can just rebuttal by saying, well, we had Phil, so it doesn't count, and we'll get him this year.
Because it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And we need those bragging rights back.
2 years without having bragging rights over West Virginia, that sounds like absolute hell. So that is like 75% of the reason why I'd want to beat West Virginia. The rest is to become 3-0, continue to be undefeated, and potentially get a better bowl game or wherever that leads us. But for now, we'll stick to Twitter.
Yeah, but even outside of the like rivalry based implications of this game, there's some real ones. Pitt started the season 2-0, including a very dominant victory over Kent State and a interesting display versus Cincinnati, we'll call it. This is going to be a huge indicator of what this team is going to be. And it's also going to influence, I think, the both local and national perception of what this team is. This is going to be on ESPN2. You're going to have a lot of people showing up to the game, both on the, or at least paying attention to the game, both on the Pitt and West Virginia side that probably won't pay much. Hi, Kitty. Won't pay much attention to a lot of other games. So this is gonna drive a lot of Pitt's image for the rest of the season.
Especially because last week, I don't know how much we learned. We said last week was a real like level setting game because we're playing a real opponent. And if we come out strong against Cincinnati, we're feeling real good. And if we lose, it's like, we might be screwed. We had both of those feelings to extremes. So I still think for that reason alone, it's let's find out how good we can be. Then it's multiplied by 1,000,000 because it's against West Virginia.
I feel like I know less about Pitt this week than I did before the Cincinnati game.
Couldn't agree more. I know so little about this team now because we saw such a range of possible outcomes just through the lens of that game last week. Possible outcomes for the season. So let's take what we do know or what we have seen and extrapolate it a bit for this matchup. Let's do some previewing. What makes you nervous about this West Virginia team?
I think you got to start with the run game. I think that's kind of what has me worried about most of our future opponents, just because of how Corey Kiner carved us up last weekend. But we've seen these guys before. We've seen CJ Donaldson. I mean, he burst on to the college football scene with a huge debut game his freshman year in the backyard brawl. Just completely dominated on the ground. I remember us watching that game and then afterwards, even though we won, just being like, oh man, I really hope CJ Donaldson is just at Alabama or something next year. Like, don't want to deal with that guy for the next couple of years. Jaheim White, another effective running back for them. He's averaging 7.5 yards a carry through 2 games. So they have a 2-headed monster back there. And then Garrett Green can run the ball. He's a dual threat guy, probably more of a running threat than a passing threat at this point. But just seeing how much difficulty Pitt had stopping Corey Kiner last week, CJ Donaldson is number 1, 2, 3 concern for me going into Saturday.
I don't know if I'm more worried about their offense or our defense, but it's the same problems. They're going to try to run the ball. I mean, they did last year. They had their backup quarterback, and they just ran it down our throats pretty much. I mean, we held it as much as we could, but alas, not enough. So the defense is going to have to make some plays, see it off the field. I know Green isn't the best passer, but our secondary isn't the best either. So that'll be an interesting matchup. And we got to try to make West Virginia one-dimensional to some degree, because we didn't do that against Cincy, and it led to a lot of problems. Starts up front this week. We saw Penn State dominate the line of scrimmage, and Garrett Green looked rattled, couldn't really make anything happen. So if we can dominate the line of scrimmage and try to make this like you can't run it on us for big chunks like previous years, that's our best shot.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page here that our fears are more on one side of the ball than the other, and I think that's going to be a recurring theme for the rest of the season. But Squid, you're exactly correct. We are going to need to make them one-dimensional. The issue is, we've seen some numbers over the offseason that Garrett Green, not a great intermediate passer, but can throw a decent deep ball. So the fear then becomes that they're going to try to pound the rock, pound the rock, pound the rock, three-headed monster to open up some airways, get our safeties to start coming up. And then, we saw what happens when Gandy and Battle get caught sleeping, couple deep balls. You throw the deep balls, and then that opens up intermediate passing, and then you just have the full offensive arsenal at your disposal. So it's certainly true that this could go south for us if we can't from snap one stop the run in some capacity.
Pat Narduzzi has basically made a living off of this defensive mindset that if you could stop the run, you can kind of control what the offense does. Made a living off stopping the run. Pat Narduzzi has to earn his salary come Saturday. This is, I know eventually it comes down to the Jimmies and Joes, but I'm really looking for a masterclass from Pat Narduzzi on how to stop the other team from running the football, because Pitt, outside of last season, in his tenure has been really good. They've made really good running backs look average. They've made really good offenses, even if they got their yards through the air, they've made really good offenses struggle to run the football, and they get it done up front. It'll be interesting to see, but I don't think it's at all a stretch to say that the game will be decided in the trenches. And that's like kind of a cliche thing to say, but this game especially, I think if Pitt can't get a surge up front offensively, and then on the defensive side, if those D tackles, there's some inexperience in there, smaller than some of the more recent teams they've had inside, but if they're not able to hold up against that physical West Virginia offensive line, it could be a long day. And that time of possession discrepancy that we saw against Cincy might be even more extreme.
Yeah, it'll be a big prove-it game for the offense, too. Kent State, we did whatever we wanted through the air against them. They just lost to St. Francis. Kent State, we knew they weren't good. We knew they really, really weren't good. They might be like the worst team in college football again this year. So not a whole lot to gain from that game. And it was a tale of two halves with Eli Holstein. So I hope we can get back to the second half and pick up from there and continue that. And we don't have long stretches of not seeing that. And I think my biggest fear is it'll turn into Slovis first half of Tennessee. Like we might have a couple games of some like subpar offense, and we keep wondering, well, if he plays like the second half of Cincinnati, we can hang with anybody.
Yeah, how often are we going to get that guy?
Let's get that guy all of this game and worry about it from there on.
Yeah, I think there's an avenue there to use your offense to supplement your defense and to weave Cade Bell's insane mega warp speed passing and running attack to help out the defense in its run stoppage. If you get the ball first, march down the field, score, as we've seen they have the incredible capacity to do, get a stop against West Virginia and score again. Guess what West Virginia can't do? Run the ball.
Yeah.
You force them to pass by hopping out to an early lead, by playing fast. And it's going to require, I mean, a lot easier said than done, right? score, stop, score, right? Like you should make me head coach. But by putting them behind the 8 ball, by delivering the first punch, you could do significant favors to that defense. And I have to imagine that that's going to be part of Coach Dew's strategy this week.
Just punch him in the mouth.
Punch him in the mouth. But I do have my concerns as well. For how heroic Holstein was in that second half. You saw what happens when he goes into a game with a little bit of jitters. His first away game, he looked shook. And I'm not going to lie, even in that second half, he went 10 of 11. He was still missing guys. He was still missing wide open guys and was still, I think, a little bit nervous to push the ball downfield.
So I will say with pushing the ball downfield, I mean, they're going to have to do that at points on Saturday. But I thought it was interesting. One of the things Eli said in the post-game presser was, just take completions. And he pointed to the play where he's like, I threw the ball 5 yards to Desmond, and he went 55 the rest of the way. Like, plays like that. Sticking to the game plan, I know he felt like he was trying to do too much. Kate Bell mentioned today, like when they talked at halftime, it was like, hey, just trust me, like stick to the game plan. And I have no fear at this point that Kate Bell knows what he's doing. I'm pretty sure that he's just the guru and we struck gold with him. So I really hope that, Eli can settle in early. I think similar to the Kent State game where we saw him get a few easy completions, just 4 or 5 yards, pitch and catch, get him into a little bit of a rhythm. Because like you said, David, like last week, obviously was his first road game in college as a starter. Even though it's a home game, I would venture to say that Saturday's environment is going to be even more intimidating, even though it's going to be majority Pitt fans, although depending on who you ask. Vivid Seats might think otherwise.
I heard that 3,000 of the tertiary market tickets reveal that it's going to be 90% West Virginia. So they bought 90% of those 3,000 tickets out of 70,000.
Right. So who knows? Maybe he is walking into a hostile environment. But I just think getting him into a rhythm early is going to be super important because, like you said, I mean, we watched that first half. If we get another first half like that, I don't know if this team has a 21-point comeback in them again 2 weeks in a row.
It'd be so funny if they did.
Yeah, it would be probably the funniest possible outcome. And the memes and the trash talk on Twitter would be top tier. But I also don't know if my heart can handle that on Saturday. So let's try to avoid any 21-point deficits. So we've touched on a couple of concerns, key factors we think can happen. Can we each go around and just give an X factor for Saturday's game for a Pitt W?
Would you like to lead us off, Captain?
Yeah, I'll kick us off here. And this one, I'm not just going to give the player, but I'm going to give a specific trait of the player. I'm going to say the health of Desmond Reed, because there's no question in my mind that dude, I mean, we've seen what he can do through 2 weeks. He's insanely explosive, insanely effective. If he's on the field, I think he's going to make plays regardless. Cade Bell's going to put him in a position to make plays. I also think we might need him to touch the ball 20, 25 times again to have the offensive output we'll need to win on Saturday. So, like we said, in the Cincy game, it was like every time he was getting hit, someone was peeling him off the turf. He was limping back to the huddle, and they'd hand him the ball the next play, and he'd get 12 more yards. So, I don't know how much he really is banged up. I'm sure there's some nicks and bruises here and there, but we need him to play a full 4 quarters on Saturday because like we said on the Cincy recap episode, none of those other running backs have really shown us much that gives us much confidence in that, if Desmond Reed has to sit out a few drives that another guy's going to be able to come in and the offense won't miss a beat. It's going to be very, very important, I think, for Desmond Reed to play a full 60 minutes.
I worry that we're just going to speak Desmond Reed getting hurt into existence.
And I don't want it to come off as because it's like, oh, he's small, he can get hurt easily. But I'm more so saying that we watched him limping around on Saturday. It's not like I'm making this up out of thin air that, oh, he's small, he could get hurt. Like anyone can get hurt on any given play.
And he's lightning quick. And on any given play, whether it's a 5-yard gain or a 40-yard gain, he's running 50 yards. It takes a lot out of you, and it makes you more likely to succumb to injury. But I do think collective Pitt fans are breathing it into existence because there's just a lot of talk of like, oh, how healthy is he? And it's like, there's not even a rumor that he's like I haven't heard sprained ankle, soreness in his leg, like nothing. We're just projecting it.
I know it's like the pessimistic Pitt fan that's built into us. And we say all this. It's like, oh, he was limping around. Well, he was limping in the first quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, he took a pass 55 yards and outran several angles. So, yeah, it's probably all in my head. I'll shut up now.
Please be all in your head. Squid, what about you? Got an X factor for us?
Yeah, I don't have a specific player. I'm just going to say the Pitt D-line. I think this is going to come into play both in the pass and run game. We talked about the run mostly. They just got to get pressure. I'm not as worried about the linebackers. I think we know a little bit more about them. Like Brandon George is a veteran. The guys around him, I think we have a lot of high hopes for. Rasheem Biles had a big game. Kyle Lewis is still obviously one of the best players in our defense so far. So I've got faith in them, but I'd like to see the guys in front of them make some plays, make some stuffs at the line on these runs, get some quarterback pressure so Garrett Green doesn't have all day to drop back, sit in a clean pocket, and then maybe take off if he has to. So if we can rely on the front four to get some pressure, get involved in the run game, that's going to make the lives of everyone behind them a lot easier, and they're going to need all the help they can get.
Yeah, I think what you said about not only getting pressure, but getting home, like I can already see it now, Sincere Edwards, Nate Matlack coming off the edge, looks like they have Garrett Green dead to rights, and then he scrambles for a first down, and we deal with a lot of that. Like, I think, obviously, we have an insanely athletic linebacking core, so I have hopes that they'll be able to corral Garrett Green, but yeah, it's the big fear for me is not getting home and then him being able to extend those plays, either scrambling for a first down or scrambling and letting a couple of those receivers, get free downfield.
Because we know we'll bring the heat on those third downs. I think we brought like 8 on that critical third down on the second to last drive Cincinnati had, and we needed all 8 guys to get in there and rush that play. So let's make Garrett Green's jersey nice and green. Get it? Because of the grass.
I hate you. No, all good points. So, in our last segment, we touched on a few other things that are going to be key. If Holstein can handle a matchup with so much context and environment like that, if he can start a game well, we talked about can Garrett Green throw the ball, and if we can force him to throw the ball so we can find out. But I'm gonna go with special teams here. I think the expectation is that neither of these teams are going to be super great at stopping the other. So it could come down to some special teams plays, and we've seen a lot of good and a lot of bad out of Pitt. I saw a stat that we're like 6th nationwide in some sort of special teams efficiency, which found a little bit hard to believe because one, we gave up a special teams touchdown in which we were receiving the ball, and I think Junko, without looking at it, Caleb Junko is averaging 8 yards a punt. So we've also housed some kicks. We also look great in the return game. We also have a kicker that can kick a ball into the river. So I trust our special teams unit. I think I trust our special teams coach because he was the best at what he did in the country at Miami. But I think this could, the real Miami. So, I think this could come down to a big splashy play on special teams, or a big screw up, or just a big old banging field goal.
If this game comes down to a field goal, they're probably going to have to take me out of there on a gurney. We've previewed the game a bit, but this is the real preview everyone's tuned in for. The Loyal Sun Sportsbook, the 107th Backyard Brawl Edition. This is the only time ever there will be a 107th Backyard Brawl Edition of the Loyal Sun Sportsbook. You're all a part of history.
And it's still not for student athletes.
Correct. Student athletes, you can hit pause, close out of your Spotify, Apple Podcast app, and just go on about your day. Squid, can you give us a quick score update? How are we looking through 2 weeks?
We are neck and neck, fellas. After week 1, I went from worst to first. Dylan and I are tied with 5. David has 4. I was helped out big time by hitting Konate Muntfield as Pitt's first touchdown scorer. It unfortunately took until the third quarter for that to hit, but I got myself 2 points for that, and the touchdowns kept coming after that. So let's just hope that our first touchdown score comes in the first drive this week.
A win's a win.
Yep.
Whether you get in the first quarter or the third. Always great to hit. Okay, let's start here. Over under 75% West Virginia fans on Saturday.
Well, I sat in the West Virginia section, and I heard a lot of West Virginia fans, and I think everyone that was wearing blue on the visiting side of the field was a West Virginia fan. That was our shade of blue, not Pitt's. And all the upper deck was West Virginia as well.
Yeah. Also, I recorded a video during Sweet Caroline and put the microphone of my phone physically inside my mouth as I screamed, "Eat shit, Pitt." So when I listen back to that video, "Eat shit, Pitt" sounds way louder than "Let's go, Pitt." So I'm also going to say 75% West Virginia.
Yeah, and when MJ Devonshire returned that pick 6 for a touchdown, I didn't hear anybody cheering at all. It was silence because it was all West Virginia fans. Nobody was happy during that moment.
You also covered your ears and eyes and ducked under the chair, crying.
Yeah,
which was unrelated.
We actually did have somebody in our replies that was a good bit we had there, fellows. Good job. But we posted a video our friend took. He was in the upper end zone, and he did a panorama of the entire stadium, and he was above the student section. He comes around the visitor side, and you see almost all blue shirts. Somebody replied and said, "Yeah, but you cut out the one part of the upper deck where the West Virginia fans were sitting, and you don't see the visiting side upper deck, and that was mostly West Virginia fans. So you just didn't show most of the stadium." And it's like, well, no, we showed all of the stadium, but the 2 little pockets where there were some West Virginia fans.
Not that you'd be able to tell because of the colors, but just the sheer number of people you see cheering and replays of. Like, I don't think a lot of West Virginia fans were going like this.
Yeah, and if you zoom in, you can see people have all their teeth in their mouth.
Okay. Move on here. One more non-player on the field related prop we have here. Loyal Suns members being puked on. Over under 0.5. This would have hit the over the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Twitter arguments with West Virginia fans, it's very funny that they think that we are making this up, because we've tweeted about it and got like 50 replies that were just like, graph of things that did this happen. No, but an orange. You know, those really sick reply guy.
I'll take things that didn't happen for 1,000.
Well, the funny thing is, the first year, David could probably prove that to be true by showing a receipt from the pro shop. He had to buy another shirt, and people said we were lying last year. So I was like, you know what? I guess I got to turn around and take a picture of the puke in our friends' puke covered shirts they took off and tweet it. And everyone's like, oh my God, that's disgusting. It's like, yeah, I know. And it happened. And it was a West Virginia fan.
I actually think that us losing last year was my fault because the year we won, I got puked on and I wore it. I, did the whole thing, threw away my shirt, went to the Pitt shop, $75 polo. But then the following year, when we all got puked on by that West Virginia student, I had left 2 minutes prior from like literally ground zero of where the spew left his mouth. And it got Dylan and our boy Bill. I think that if I had worn that, we win again. And by escaping death, kind of like the Final Destination movies, by cheating death, all I did was delay the inevitable. Like a life had to be lost. The debt had to be paid. But having said that, I am going to go under 0.5 just because I am now losing, which means I have to take this seriously. And the statistical probability of one of the three of us getting puked on a third consecutive year, it's got to be near impossible, right? Right?
Never know with the Brawl.
It is the Brawl. Whatever. I thought we'd all go over and
maybe we can puke on somebody this year.
You can.
Back.
I'll go under because I don't want to have to buy a new shirt on the way into the stadium. And I don't want either of you to have to buy a new one.
I guess I'll go under as well.
There we go. Your creativity has
yielded nothing.
Baby. Yeah, there you go.
Are we going to include this on the graphic? Because it would be really boring if we all go under on the number of times puked on. How about we all acknowledge that we went under, but like the graphic, we all go over. Just for the Twitter play.
I mean, we're canceling each other out anyway, so let's just all say over. We're all going to get
over.
We're all going over. Over.
Yeah. Okay. Glad we could come to an agreement there. Who will account for more touchdowns come Saturday? Pitt's Eli Holstein or West Virginia's Garrett Green? So when I say account for more touchdown, that's passing, rushing, receiving even. Who will account for more touchdowns between the two of them? Squid, you want to kick us off?
I can, and I will say Eli Holstein. I think he's going to have a big game, but I also think we're going to rely on the pass a little bit more than West Virginia. West Virginia will probably be pretty run heavy. I fear Donaldson and White might be the ones punching it in for them. Meanwhile, Pitt might be chucking around a little bit more.
David?
I was going to say the same thing for all the same reasons that Squid did. But I could also kind of flip it and give in to my worst impulses that what if we secretly suck and Garrett Green throws for 2 and runs for 2 and we're no, not going to do it. Not going to do it. Holstein.
I'll go Holstein as well. The mean Steen is rolling right now. He's thrown for 3 touchdowns in each of the first 2 games. Who knows? Maybe he makes it 4 this Saturday for a new career high. Okay, this is an interesting one. And it probably the 2 players we've given the most play on each side this game or this episode is Desmond Reed or CJ Donaldson. Who will finish with more yards from scrimmage? And I can start us off on this one since you two have taken the last couple. This is a tough one because on one hand, Desmond Reed is literally leading the country in all-purpose yards. On the other hand, I once again am losing sleep at night over what CJ Donaldson might do to this Pitt defense. They have shown some rough patches in their tackling abilities, just bouncing off ball carriers, not being able to get guys down on first contact. And CJ Donaldson, of all guys, is not a guy who's easy to get down on first contact. On the flip side of that, he does kind of split the workload with Jaheim White. Desmond Reed has proven to be the bell cow for Pitt thus far. But I'm looking for someone else to take some of the pressure off Desmond Reed on Saturday. And I'm thinking they're going to give the ball to CJ Donaldson early and often. I'm going to go Donaldson here, even as much as I hope it's Desmond Reed. And I think for Pitt's sake, it probably should be Desmond Reed. I really am just feeling a big game for Donaldson, unfortunately.
I think you're crazy. I'm going Desmond Reed, and I would probably take Desmond Reed if you said Donaldson and White combined. Because they are not a factor in West Virginia's passing game. And we are talking about, again, the leading yard getter. Is it in the country or just the ACC?
Country. All-purpose yards,
Yeah.
He's leading the country.
Yeah, I knew that. I just wanted you to repeat it.
Oh.
We're talking about the best player on that will be touching grass.
This is one of those ones where I'm hoping
Saturday.
I'm just mush. Like I'm just trying to mush this into existence. That's all. I'm just trying to do my part.
Like Lejeune betting $400 on West Virginia money line.
It's like how Dylan said last week, Kenny Johnson would have a Jordan Addison-esque season, then he proceeded to have 0 catches. Reverse psychology. Mm-hmm.
This ain't my first time putting in bets. I always lose.
I'm going to go with Desmond Reed as well. I think our offense is going to run through Desmond Reed moving forward. We'll be passing it to him. We'll be running it with him. I don't expect Derek Davis to be doing a whole lot. So ride or die, Desmond Reed. Hopefully it's enough.
Last prop before our first touchdown picks. Over under 1.5 unsportsmanlike penalties in this game. It's a fierce rivalry. Even though nowadays in college football, a lot of the teams are filled out by transfers. These guys might not play in this game every single year. I think the coaches still do their part to make them understand how important this game is, how big of a rivalry these two programs have. And I think just walking into that stadium, you talk to some of the players who played in that first Brawl back in 2022. They're like, once the game started, we kind of realized like, oh, this is different. For some of the new guys, it was like this was their welcome to college football moment. But for some of the guys who had been in college for a few years, it was like, yeah, we haven't really played in many games like this. Like this is a completely different animal. So with that being said, like tempers will flare. The emotions are going to be at an all-time high. So, David, what do you think? Where are we at for the unsportsmanlike penalties for the game?
I'm going under on the unsportsmanlike penalties, especially because not to say that the players haven't brought it the last 2 years, and that you can't tell that you can clearly tell that the atmosphere is trickling its way onto the field. It hasn't been like as crazy chippy as you would expect from a rivalry of this caliber. I think most of the bad blood, most of the juice is in the stands. So if you were setting a line that was like 100 arrests or like
fist fights in our section,
3.5 viral videos of fist fights on Twitter the following Sunday, I would go over, but I think the players keep a relatively cool head, and I'm going to go under 1.5. Wait, question. Important clarification. I did not move my hand off the chess piece. Does it count as 2 if players get offsetting unsportsmanlike conduct penalties?
Yes.
I think it should be 1.5 instances of
Okay.
On-
1.5 instances of unsportsmanlike conduct.
So let's just say over 2.5 then.
okay, under 2.5.
That was my exact logic there. I thought the odds of there being like 2 linemen getting into it late after the play and the rest being like, all right, let's clean this up. You each get a penalty. But to get 3, fuck it. I'll say yeah.
Yeah. Over.
Yeah, give me the over.
Gonna go over as well. 1 set of offsetting penalties, and then one guy loses his mind during the victory formation, or when the game's kind of gotten out of reach. We know how these games can play out. I'm gonna go over, and I think I like that if it goes over. Well, I want some chippiness in the Brawl. I don't want 2 well-behaved, disciplined teams. I want absolute madness on the field. This is a 3:30 game. People are gonna be on their horse early. It's going to be a little hot. People are going to be, the heat can get to people and piss people off. We're going to go over on these unsportsmanlike penalties.
Too damn hot.
Too damn hot. Almost 84 degrees, 85 degrees Saturday. All right. First touchdown scorer picks. Squid, you hit on this last week. Put you in a spot to pull into a tie for first place. So with that said, you have the honors. Give us your first pick.
I'm going back to the well. Give me Muntfield. I think he's emerging as the number 1 guy. And Cade Bell is going to dial up something diabolical down in the red zone to him.
David?
A couple points of clarification. For starters, when did we unspoken make it Pitt's first touchdown score instead of the game's first touchdown score?
Wasn't it always that?
I've definitely picked guys from other teams when Pitt was bad last year, but either way, run with it. Have we nerfed Desmond Reed yet? Is he still worth 2?
He only has 2 touchdowns through 2 games, so
That one.
or 3 touchdowns through 2 games, I guess. You got Desmond Reed?
I'll take Reed.
Funny enough, I had a friend of mine, shout out to Chris, for sending me screenshots from a out-of-state sports book that actually gives player props for college football. Unfortunately, we don't have those in Pennsylvania yet. Be a lot of fun if we did. Just want to give you guys the lines for odds just to score a touchdown. This isn't the first touchdown score, but the odds that this book is giving for a player to score anytime touchdown score. Garrett Green, minus 138. Kanade Muntfield, minus 110. Jaheim White, minus 105. CJ Donaldson, even money at plus 100. Cole Taylor, plus 170. Poppy Williams, plus 175. Traylon Ray, plus 180. Hudson Clement, plus 200. Preston Fox, plus 200. Gavin Bartholomew, plus 230. And Squid, I think you pointed out that he has, 1 touchdown in his last...
I think it was 20.
20 college games? Something like that? Something like that. He has to have more than that.
Did I not hear Desmond Reed's name?
Eli Holsting plus 260. I do not see in the screenshot I was sent Desmond Reed. So they don't have him listed in the top, what's that, 11 guys? Interesting, to say the least. Interesting.
Should we be worried about something?
I'm going to knock on every piece of wood here. But I'm actually going to reach out and get some clarification of where he is listed, if at all. Once again, this is not DraftKings, not FanDuel, just now unnamed out-of-state sportsbook. So, with that all being said, I don't think Desmond Reed's a bad pick, David, by any means. What direction do I want to go here? Give me Gavin Bartholomew. I know he's only had a handful of scores, and I know that typically what we hope for and dream of is a little more than his actual on-field production. But it's a backyard brawl. It's the last time Gavin will play in one of these. If there was ever a time for him to have another, I guess, signature moment at Pitt outside of the hurdle against Tennessee, but if there was ever a time for him to have a signature moment, why wouldn't it be the initial score in the backyard brawl to get the boys buzzing before a Panthers win? So I'm going to go with Bart this week. And now here we are. Prediction time, fellas. Last time I checked before we started recording, the line was sitting at Pitt +2 on DraftKings. The over-under for the game is 64. I know we don't typically pick the over-under, but wanted to throw that out there as well. And it's time for our predictions. And I can kick us off if you guys would like, unless anyone wants to do the honors.
By all means.
Okay. So, come Saturday, it's a 3:30 kick, ESPN2, national television. Third edition of the newly renewed Brawl series, the 107th version of this game. Pitt Panthers have a hell of an opportunity in front of them. They've started the season 2-0. They clawed back from death last week against Cincinnati. And next week they have Youngstown State to round out the non-conference schedule. But Saturday, it's the biggest one because it's the next one, but also because it's the biggest one. It's the backyard brawl. And I think that place is going to be rocking on Saturday. I think Cade Bell and Eli Holstein have kind of figured some things out. I think this Pitt team has a chance to be pretty dang good this year. But they're going to have to prove it to us on Saturday. And I think they do. Give me Pitt Panthers over West Virginia, 30-27 in a nail biter in a game that my heart is beating out of my chest. And I'm going to need a bit of a cool down. Can't really see your screen. Is that your prediction?
Yeah, I got to change mine now. Great minds think alike.
Great minds. Hey, maybe that's something.
Sorry, what was the score you gave?
30-27. Nail biter.
Squid, you got to go 31-28.
Yeah, I will. I will preface this by saying every time I think a game is going to be high scoring nowadays, I think it is like a lock to be an under. So for that reason, I don't feel too confident going super high here, but I think both teams have pretty good offenses. They got some good players on offenses, and I don't think there's going to be a dominant defense. Won't be like last year where there was just two subpar offenses trying to make plays happen. They can't because they just aren't that good. We're going to see some fireworks this year. 31-28 Pitt.
I do not know.
Good.
Not a good answer.
I could see this going in so many different ways. And I'm worried because I just peeked at Pitt's schedule the rest of the season. And it's gotten better. It's gotten harder through the first 2 weeks because I guess Boston College and Cal are decent now. And it's filling me with all of this anxiety. And it's like there's a weighted plate on my chest. And I just dropped my mic against the table, so that's going to be terrible for audio. So
Didn't hear anything.
oh, nice. Man,
Say two numbers.
Just two numbers.
Pitt covers and wins 38-35.
All right.
Love
a
it.
bit higher.
I don't even know if I believe that. But if Pitt can just do the thing I said, we want the ball, we're going to score 7-0. String together one BS stop the way that we did against Cincy that first drive. Cincy or Edwards, bringing home the sack on third down. Get the ball back, score again, 14-0. In the driver's seat, doesn't matter as much what happens the rest of the game. Make Garrett Green throw. Don't let him sit on you the way Cincy did in the first half. And I don't know. I think from there we can outrace them in a barn burner. I think this needs to be a barn burner for Pitt. We need to outrace them.
I agree. I think 30 is probably the absolute minimum they can score and still win this game. I think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be a pretty football game. I think there's going to be turnovers. I think there's going to be busted coverages. And it's going to be a brawl. I mean, that's all there is to it. This game, every cliche you want, throw the records out the window. Doesn't matter who's who, da-da-da-da-da. But I truly do feel that way about this game. And one thing I know for sure, well, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because this could be very bad, but this will certainly be a better football game than the one that was played in Morgantown last year, which may go down as the worst college football game ever played.
And that's coming from a fan of a team that watched a 3-0 bowl game.
Yes. I mean, I'm looking right now. What was the final yardage in that game for both teams? I believe it was, it was 211 to 211. The two teams combined for 422 yards in last year's game. The two teams combined for 141 passing yards in that game. I would venture to say, I would almost guarantee both those get eclipsed in the first half of Saturday's game. So, whatever it looks like, they win this game 3-0, I'll go home happy. That's perfectly fine with me. Because it's the brawl and you just need to win. So, fellas, David, you have something?
No. Please win.
I'm stressing you out. I was just going to say, I think it's time we do our begging and pleading.
Yeah, I'm too stressed to continue. So let's please wrap this up and please, please, please win.
Please show up Saturday. Please have the time of your life tailgating in whatever lots you assume will be in Gold Lot 1A, right in front of the stadium. Please keep yourself safe, keep yourself hydrated. And no matter what we do on Saturday, please, please win, Pitt Panthers. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, like the video, like this podcast episode wherever you listen. And as always, hail, loyal sons of Pittsburgh.